Hello, everybody. I would like to come to you today and talk to you about the second writing assignment. This video will be a little bit longer because I want to talk to you about applying the um, you attitude and avoiding negative words and phrases. So I will talk about that a little bit during the process. So the first letter that you wrote was called the good news or the message or the positive message or the direct strategy message. This one, the negative strategy or the negative message, I want you to think about it as an indirect strategy. So you're not actually um, telling somebody in that first paragraph the reason for your writing and what you want him or her to do as you did in the positive or the direct approach. It's called direct approach because you're telling them directly what you want in the very first paragraph. But the indirect approach is where you're going to apply a buffer. So that first paragraph is going to be a buffer that's going to be complimentary. So you're going to compliment the recipient or his or her organization or whatever. This is just in general. I'm not talking about this particular case study, but just in general, what you do when you write an indirect letter to somebody. So you give the buffer, and then in the second body paragraph, or the second paragraph, excuse me, the first body paragraph. In the second paragraph, you give the reasons why you have to give the bad news, whatever the bad news is, and you imply the bad news. So instead of telling somebody, for example, I regret to inform you that Chase cannot extend credit to you because your credit is bad. You don't say that to somebody. No. Instead, what you would say is something like this. Chase extends credit to people or to customers who have a credit score of 750 or higher. When you have a credit score of 750 or higher, please apply again. So the purpose of the indirect strategy or the negative message is to give somebody news that he or she may find bad, but to still maintain goodwill. So I know that we have all seen the quintessential bad news letters. I regret to inform you, those kind of things. But that has no place in this kind of writing in this letter. I want you to avoid that. You put the positive spin on everything. So you do have to imply the bad news, and you want to maintain goodwill. So let's recap right quickly. The first paragraph is the complimentary buffer where you're making some compliments, and it should be genuine. Don't just make up something, but it should be genuine. The case study for this letter that you're going to write provides you with the great work that this particular organization has been doing, so you can use details from this to put in your buffer. The second paragraph is going to be where you give the reasons for the refusal or for the denial, and then you're going to imply the refusal or the denial. So that's paragraph 2. Paragraph 3 is where you're going to provide an alternate solution. So paragraph 3 is your chance to extend the olive branch. You're not able to give the recipient what he or she wants, but what can you offer? So in my 1105 class, one of the case studies they have to write is a memo to their employees telling them that they're going to start a random drug testing. So that sounds bad for a lot of people because it's a construction company, and a lot of people in construction aren't used to having drug tests, so they just think that they can sort of have their outside hobbies and not have to be tested. So that could be bad news for somebody, for some people. So what in the world kind of alternative solution could you offer these employees? Well, one of my guys came up with the idea that if everyone passes the drug test, that the insurance company will knock 2% off the employees' insurance premiums. That's a pretty good alternative solution. So you're telling them, hey, this is a way for us to improve our paychecks because we're paying less money for insurance if we all pass this drug test. So that's also a good option. Anyway, so third paragraph is alternative solution. What can you offer this organization or this person as an alternative to granting them their request? Okay, and the last paragraph is where you just end by telling the recipient to contact you with any questions. Now, depending on what kind of alternate solution that you offered or what you said as the reason for your implying the refusal, you may have to say something in your conclusion like, please contact me in reference to the time you would like for us to get together for that, to plan that, I don't know, banquet, fundraising banquet, or something like that. But give the recipient your direct office extension and your direct work mail. So you're going to use an email that's going to be like, for example, if your name is Tom Brown, your email for this assignment would be tom.brown@Mark Mendelson Financial Services, or MMFS. Okay, and then you can make up an extension for your phone, but just keep that in mind. It's all made up stuff, so you're not having to give anybody anything, but you always want to give a recipient your direct extension, not make him or her call the company and be connected to you, because you want to maintain that goodwill, see, and relationships are about goodwill, that they foster goodwill. So if you give him or her your office extension and your work email, don't give your home email or your personal email or your cell phone number. No, it should be still focused on the business, but this person can contact you directly while you're at work. So that is the layout. You're looking at 4 paragraphs. So keep that in mind, 4 paragraphs. Now, I have had students who were able to combine the second and third paragraphs together, but remember, these paragraphs need to be short, and they should be brief. This week, you're learning some information about how to use the you attitude, and you're learning about how to avoid using negative words and phrases. You're learning about how to avoid buried verbs so you can keep your sentences more concise. So if you're doing that work or whatever, yeah, please make sure that you are asking me any questions. If you don't understand why something is the correct answer, please ask me so that I can answer that for you, because I will be grading your paper based on every time you use the word I. You should not use the first person I. It's you attitude. Focus on you and your. It's every time you use a negative word or phrase, it's 5 points. So 5 points for using first person and 5 points for using negative words and phrases. Keep that in mind. You can see the on the rubric that's attached to your syllabus all the points that are deducted. This paper is going to have 3 grades. It's going to have a content grade, it's going to have a formatting grade, and it's going to have grammar and mechanics grade. The content grade is going to come from how well you write these 4 paragraphs, and that you include in each paragraph what should be included. And then the formatting grade comes from, of course, do you have full block format? Have you provided the letterhead? All that. And we'll look at that in just a few minutes. And then, of course, the grammar mechanics grade comes from how well you use grammar and mechanics. You're representing a company in this particular case study, so you definitely need to use good grammar mechanics. Go to see the tutor using Upswing. Please look for Pamela Yates. She's there on Tuesday and Thursday nights and days as well. You can look at our announcements to see her times that she's there. But when you go into Upswing and you start looking, don't look for English 1010. Start typing in Pamela Yates, and then her name will pop up. Okay, let's look at this particular case study. You are writing a letter for this case study. You are not making up your own scenario. You must write as the Vice President of Mark Mendelson Financial Services, and you are writing to Paulina Ramirez. So this is your case study you're writing for. Some people will still submit something that they make up, and that's a 0 because you did not fulfill the requirements. So please make sure that you're using this case study, and the case study gives you all the information you need to create your company's letterhead, and it gives you all that you need for your recipient's inside address. So remember, return address is not going to, you're not going to have a return address like you had for your first letter. Your first letter was a personal letter from you to someone, a company. But when you're writing the business letter, you're going to have letterhead and no inside address. So you are the Vice President of Mark Mendelson Financial Services, and the address is there for you. The phone number is provided, the fax is provided, and the website is provided. All this information must appear in the letterhead. You are the Vice President. You are not Mark Mendelson. So do not sign your name as Mark Mendelson. Sign your name as your name. Also, do not put your name in the letterhead. Letterhead is pre-printed paper that has a company's contact information, physical address and web address, and phone and fax numbers. And everyone in the organization uses it. Now, if the company's name is a person's name, then yes, that person's name is going to be on the letterhead. But your name is not going to be on the letterhead. Otherwise, there is no employee name on letterhead, because if there were, then if that employee left, then everybody had to buy all new letterhead, which is expensive. Okay. Okay, so Paulina Ramirez is the president, Board of Directors, National Court Appointed Advocates. Please do not put of in your inside address. In other words, don't put President of Board of Directors at National Court Appointed. So a lot of times we'll put this whole thing and put all these prepositions. The correct form is President, comma, Board of Directors, comma, National Court Appointed Special Advocates, and then you've got her address. Now she is asking you to contribute more money than you currently have contributed in the past to her organization. She's not really asking you, she's asking for your company. She wants Mark Mendelson Financial Services to contribute, but you are the vice president, and she knows you because you are your company, or Mark Mendelson is her financial advisor. It's her actual financial advisor. So keep that in mind. Your company is the one that handles her retirement and her investments and all that. So she's been to your office and she's talked to you about programs to recruit, train, and support volunteers in their work with abused children. And she plays an active role in helping neglected children find safe, permanent homes. So she's told you about this, about these volunteers being more, when they're trained, they're more likely to help children find permanent homes and to get them out of the welfare system. Now, this part right here, you have a soft spot in your heart for children, and especially those who are mistreated. Do not put that in your letter, okay? Because this idea of a soft spot is not business writing. What you would say is that MMFS admires the work, or better yet, focus on CASA, the court-appointed special advocates, and say something like CASA provides a noble service within the community. So you're telling that you appreciate it, but you're being focused on CASA. So this is the problem. Y'all are having financial difficulties, and you can't be as generous as you've been in the past. Now, it's not. To keep this in mind, you handle her retirement and her investments. So you do not want to tell her, your client, that you are having financial problems, because that's how people spread things and that's how companies have problems. So this is talking to you. You know that you guys are having tough times and you can't be as generous as you've been in the past. And Ms. Ramirez wrote you a special letter requesting that MMFS become a key contributor with a $1,000 pledge. So think about reasons why you could give her. There's a variety of reasons. Let's see, we're in October. Most companies' fiscal years begin in July. So her request has come late, right? That's one thing to think about, that the request has arrived after the fiscal year has started. So she could reapply starting in January, as long as she submits her request by April 15th. Something like that. I'm just helping you think this through. You don't have to use my example, but I'm just trying to help you think about some options. Perhaps you've already allotted money for MMFS, but you've already given all of your charitable contribution budget out, and your company will have to wait until next year for the next budget. So just think about those kind of options. Again, when you are telling the reasons why you have to say no and implying no, think about that. So your task is to use the negative message strategy, or as I've been calling it, the indirect strategy, to write a donation refusal request letter that maintains good relations with your client. The purpose of the indirect or the negative strategy is to tell the person no, imply no, right? But still maintain goodwill. So you want to create a letterhead using the details above. So you've got your letter details right here. Do not include your name again on the letterhead. Just Mark Mendelson Financial Services. And then address it to Ms. Paulina Ramirez. And using her title and contact details above. Again, everything is provided for you to create your letterhead and to create your inside address. So you're going to provide details necessary to complete the message. So you've got the case study up there. Okay, so now you need to explain. Remember your complimentary details for buffers. So you really can see what all work she does. That area right here should help you to build your buffer easily. And the next body paragraph, you're going to include your alternate solution. That's the third body paragraph. So the first one is to give a buffer. Your first paragraph. The first body paragraph is to explain the reason for your refusal and then imply your refusal. The next body paragraph is to provide an alternate solution. And then I gave an example. Perhaps MFS has already included costs as part of its charitable donation budget, so you may consider, as part of an alternate solution, your original smaller donation. In other words, you've already given her $500, so that might be a solution. Perhaps you received her request after the fiscal year started, so you're unable to meet her request this year. And perhaps you received her request after the fiscal year started, so you're unable to meet her request this year. But again, you don't want to say, I am sorry, we are unable to meet your request. You don't want to say that to her. Say positively, that her request came in before the start of the fiscal year and she needs to apply again next year. Something like that, and with that $1,000 request. Always mention the request. So you're letting the recipient know that you know what he or she has asked, that you've read the letter or the email and you know what the person's asking. So you always make reference to the person's request. And then, of course, I've already told you in the conclusion, you're going to include any necessary dates and your company, not the company's contact details, your contact details, your work email and office extension, and sign the letter with your last name and your title as Vice President, comma, Mark Mendelson Financial Services. Okay. And I said, if you want to pretend that your secretary types your letter, you can double space below your title, below your professional title, the vice president part, and you can type your secretary's initials in lowercase. So the secretary's initials, or the typist's initials, will be in lowercase. So, but it would not be yours. If you type it yourself, you don't put initials. If you want to pretend that you have a secretary typing it, you can put the secretary's initials in lowercase, double space below your title and your company name. If you mention an enclosure, for example, if you say, please find enclosed an alternative, $300 or whatever, if you want to say that, then you would, of course, below the secretary's initials, type the word enclosure without the single quotation marks around it, just the word enclosure. And I've given you more information right here. I've already talked to you about it, so you can read that. This grading is old. I should have changed this, but your grading, like I told you, third comes from your content and organization, a third comes from your formatting, and a third comes from grammar and mechanics. Okay, and then mechanics, I talk about this. I can't pre-grade your work. You guys already know that. It's just reminders. Content and organization, so you're supposed to use the positive or the direct strategy. In this case, you've got to use the indirect strategy. I've got to revise it and update it again for you. I'll re-upload it in just a few minutes. But yeah, that's going to need to say that you need to use the indirect. So it's going to say negative or indirect strategy or organization. All right, so let's look then. I tell you what to avoid. All this that you're working on this week, the negative language, flabby, trite, redundant expressions, all that stuff, you guys are working on that. So make sure you avoid it. And I tell you, of course, to use basic formatting for full block formatting. So everything, the fonts here that are acceptable for you to use. Actually, I've got to change this, not for this semester, but for next semester, because now everything has to be written using ADA compliant fonts. So sans serif fonts like Arial and Tahoma are the new acceptable fonts. And Calibri also. I use Calibri, as you can see in here. I had to, because I have to use accessible fonts. Okay, so I tell you about the letterhead to avoid letterhead that has flowers and birds and hearts. Nothing like that. This is a business. It's a company. So make sure read all this little checklist. It's a checklist for you. Read it and check it off as you check yourself. So let's look at. Actually, I'm going to end this and I'm going to open the sample letter. So it'll be a little bit shorter presentation. Okay, I hope this helps as you work through, and I will see you in a few minutes.